When I warned you on this show, people would die, not lose their tax money, not have to fight legal costs of a regulation, not have to fight against Obamacare. Those are all legitimate political fights too, worth their weight. But when you lose the fight over public safety, people die. Listen, I went on Hannity the other night talking about, let's move on to the absolute destruction and chaos in New York City, Chicago, and other liberal cities, and the grotesque failure of leadership by the failed mayors over there who are just horror shows for humankind. The failed mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, and the even worse, which is astonishing. You'd think it can't get any worse than Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago. It can, Mayor DeBlasio in New York City. Maybe the worst mayor in the history of civilized humanity since we've evolved from Neanderthals. Bill DeBlasio is probably the worst mayor of any small town city we've ever seen in the history of sentient beings. So I went on Sean Hannity's show Monday, last night, and Fox and Friends this morning. And, I was talking about the chaos, and I wanted to get an accurate count of the shootings, the murders that had happened in New York City. And I'm not kidding. Right before I was on my phone right here at this desk right here, sitting right here looking. And before I went on, I'm trying to get an accurate body count. And I noticed a tweet had come over on Twitter from the Daily Caller about another 14-year-old in New York City that had been shot. And I thought to myself, is this really where we're at right now? Where 5 minutes before you go on the air, you have to update your information about shootings because someone else has been shot? Imagine if that was your neighborhood. Imagine that for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, these aren't rounding errors. 45 people were shot. Actually, Dan, it's 47. These aren't rounding errors. These are real people. Oh, I know you know that. And I know you all are as deeply touched and moved by this and the horror of this story as I am. But the media doesn't get that. The lib media doesn't want to talk about any of that. These aren't rounding errors. If you watch the video of the man killed in the South Bronx in broad daylight, he's walking across the street in the crosswalk with his 6-year-old daughter. He is shot assassination style in the middle of the day. Folks, we can't even play the video because we'll probably be taken off YouTube. You have to see the video. It's on Chief Rodney Harrison. If you go to his Twitter feed, it's on his Twitter feed, the full video. You need to watch it. You need to take in every single moment of it. Not if you're a kid. I wouldn't recommend it for kids. But if you're an adult or over 18, over 16, you should look at it. Watch what the kid does. She runs. She runs out of the street, out of the crosswalk in horror. Her dad dies right in front of her. She gets on the corner and just runs. Where she went, I have no idea. Who stopped her from running? Where did she go? I couldn't get that out of my head last night. Where'd the kid go? You don't see the video. It cuts off. It's taken from a camera. Where'd the 6-year-old go? What did she say? Anyone in the media want to talk about that? I thought Black Lives Matter, not that guy apparently. What about his daughter? Does her life matter? She happened to be black too. Where'd she go? She knock on the door of a cell phone store or bodega or whatever and say, hey, I need help. My father just died. Did someone catch her a couple blocks away walking around crying? I couldn't get that out of my head. What'd the daughter do? Something goes bad with my daughters. Not that bad. They run to me. Daddy, where'd she go? Daddy was gone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not even remotely interested in what the guy did in the past or didn't. You don't. I'm sorry. You don't get executed on the streets of New York. I'm not. Sometimes I get emails like that, and I delete them immediately because it's not the point. You don't get executed on the streets of New York City in front of your 6-year-old kid. Don't forget that. Where'd the kid go? Don't forget that question. Where'd she go? Her life will never, ever, ever, ever be the same. So I was going on last night and I thought I've had a really tough time getting this out of my head. Look at this New York Post cover. New York Post, who's been just filleting the failed, grotesque mayor of New York City, communist Bill DeBlasio. Front cover, New York Post, crime-ravaged city cries out for help. Bill, do something. Which, by the way, is a take on an older New York Post cover. You can see in the middle, youtube.com/Bongino, if you'd like to look at the imagery. From when I grew up in New York 30 years ago. Instead of Bill, for DeBlasio, do something, which is on the cover today, the New York Post, you can see a little kind of sub-picture in the middle that says, Dave, do something. Well, thank you, Paula. That was very good. She highlighted that for us. That was 30 years ago. Who was Dave? Well, for those of you who weren't New York City residents, Dave was the second worst mayor in the history of New York City, David Dinkins, who was also a liberal Democrat, who oversaw historic crime and thousands of people murdered on the streets of New York City. Now, disgustingly, tragically, these hacks in the media and everywhere else are trying, and liberals pretty much universally, sadly, are trying to blame this on Trump, of course. Now, as I brought up this morning on Fox and Friends, and I'll bring up again now, was it Trump who disbanded the plainclothes anti-crime unit in New York City? Was it him? Oh, no, it wasn't. It was DeBlasio who did that. You know, the plainclothes unit, not dressed up in police uniforms, that drive around in unmarked vehicles, that report large swaths of self-observed crime. Why? Now, again, I know for some of the liberals I have a tough time with this. Why would a plainclothes police officer be able to self-observe crime? Because he's not in a police uniform. For the incredibly thick watching the show who happen to be on the left who can't figure this out. We can't have plainclothes cops. They got to be in uniform. You think people commit crimes in front of cops in uniform? No, they don't. They commit crime in front of plainclothes cops who don't advertise their police officers, who then can arrest people and stop that crime before it happens. Mayor DeBlasio and his hapless police chief, Dermot Shea, who has completely failed the police department, have disbanded and taken those 600 anti-crime officers off the street. Was that Trump who did that? I'm just checking. No, it wasn't Trump who did that? Okay. Trump had no say over that at all. I'm not wrong, right? It wasn't Trump. Trump has never been the mayor of New York. Joe, listen, I know you're not as deep in the weeds with politics as I am, but I'm pretty confident, correct me if I'm wrong, that Donald Trump was never the mayor of New York. Is that right?
Nah, you're cool, bro. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right on the money.
Just checking to make sure I'm not off here in my analysis. So President Trump did not, in fact, remove the anti-crime police officers from the street. The anti-crime police officers that likely could have stopped the 44, 47 shootings we had this weekend. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply sorry about my lack of precision in the shootings. This is not a rounding error. These are real human lives. But I honestly don't know how many were shot. I'm not sure if it was 44 or 47. It's hard to get an accurate count. So just to be clear, it wasn't Trump who did. Okay, good. That's good to know. That was actually DeBlasio. When I warned you on this show, people would die. Not lose their tax money, not have to fight legal costs of a regulation, not have to fight against Obamacare. Those are all legitimate political fights too, worth their weight. But when you lose the fight over public safety, people die.
You just heard Dan Bongino.